Amidst a dense forest, Dresa is startled awake by the distant hum of an approaching aircraft. Instinctively, she readies her weapon, and the moment a man steps off the plane, he is immediately struck down with a precise shot to the head. Meanwhile, former Marine Levi awakens abruptly from a harrowing nightmare and decides to clear his mind by spending some time at the beach. The following morning, he receives a message instructing him to report to the Marine Corps base. Upon arrival at the base, Levi is introduced to Agent Bartholomew, who is well aware of his distinguished career as an elite marksman. She also notes his lack of personal ties, no family or friends, which makes him an ideal candidate for a highly classified assignment. Meanwhile, in Lithuania, Dresa meets her father at a cemetery to commemorate the anniversary of her mother's passing. Her father confesses that his battle with cancer has progressed beyond treatment, and he declares that if he survives until the 14th of February, he will take his own life to reunite with his late wife on Valentine's Day. By September, Levi regains consciousness aboard an aircraft, having been rendered unconscious by anesthesia. When he inquires about their location, a soldier refuses to disclose any details. She confiscates his belongings and informs him that they are approaching restricted airspace. His only option is to parachute down and continue the journey on foot. Clutching his assigned pack, Levi leaps from the aircraft, deploying his parachute at the opportune moment. He lands safely and begins his arduous trek, navigating through rugged terrain, scaling steep inclines, and camping under the stars. Eventually, he arrives at the edge of an enormous gorge, where he encounters a fellow soldier, JD, who has been stationed there for a year yet remains unaware of their exact whereabouts. The two proceed to the West Tower, a self-sustaining facility equipped with solar panels, a backup generator, a rainwater collection system, a vegetable garden, and an abundance of wild game for sustenance. Across the gorge stands the East Tower, but all communication with its occupant is strictly forbidden. Radio contact is established once a month, though there is no means of communicating beyond that. In the event of an emergency, a panic button will activate the stray dog protocol, though JD has no idea what it entails, only that his best advice is to run should it ever be triggered. JD explains that this location dates back to the Cold War era, when military units from various nations vowed to keep its existence secret, even from world leaders. Levi's duty is straightforward: ensure that nothing within the gorge escapes. Though it sounds absurd, JD insists he once thought the same, until he witnessed creatures the guards have ominously named Hollow Men. Eerie shrieks echo from the depths of the gorge as he recounts the tale. According to records, 3 cavalry battalions were deployed into the gorge during the late 1940s with orders to eliminate any threats. None returned, leading the military to abandon any attempts at eradication, instead shifting their focus solely to containment. Having completed his mission, JD departs, hiking to the extraction point. A helicopter hoists him aboard via a rope, but when he provides his identification, the soldier aboard executes him without hesitation, unceremoniously discarding his body into the mountains. A month later, Levi has settled into his monotonous routine, patrolling the perimeter, maintaining security systems, and checking in over the radio. The voice on the other end merely asks for confirmation that all is well before abruptly terminating the call. One day, while tending the garden, Levi notices movement at the distant tower. Peering through his binoculars, he spots Dresa chopping wood. She acknowledges his presence but chooses to ignore him. One stormy night, Levi is jolted awake by another nightmare, accidentally knocking over a glass in his panic. Convinced of an intruder, he instinctively reaches for his firearm, only to realize that he has merely stepped on broken glass. As he tends to his wound, he notices Dresa observing him from her tower, though she promptly retreats when she realizes he has spotted her. Time passes, and Dresa's birthday arrives. Seeking amusement, she fires her weapon to catch Levi's attention and holds up a sign asking for his name. Levi responds by reminding her that communication is forbidden, but Dresa remains defiant, introducing herself regardless. Finding her boldness amusing, Levi shares his name as well, raising his glass in a silent toast. She then plays loud music and beckons him to dance. He jokingly protests, insisting he is a dreadful dancer but an exceptional sniper. In response, Dresa playfully shoots his water bottle. In retaliation, Levi destroys hers, prompting Dresa to balance another atop her head for an impromptu challenge. However, their light-hearted exchange is abruptly interrupted when she notices something stirring in the gorge below. As Levi shifts his focus, he sees eerie, humanoid figures composed of bark and vines scaling the cliffs towards them. Without hesitation, he shoots one, triggering an explosion as it sets off a landmine, toppling several others. Yet more continue their ascent, forcing both Levi and Dresa to unleash a relentless barrage of gunfire. Their combined efforts swiftly eliminate the attackers, and just as they begin to lower their guard, one of the creatures reaches Dresa's balcony. She fires multiple shots before kicking it off the ledge, but more begin to scale the walls on her side. One of the creatures is caught in an explosion, sending debris flying. Dresa is struck in the shoulder, yet she fights on. Eventually, the mines and machine guns prove effective, and no more creatures emerge. As dawn breaks, Dresa tends to her injuries and declares it to be the most thrilling birthday she has ever had. Meanwhile, Levi descends to assess the damage and replace the mines. At that moment, a drone suddenly emerges from the gorge, flying off into the distance. In December, Levi decorates a tree in the forest with twinkling lights to replicate a Christmas tree, leaving a sign for Dresa. From then on, they find joy in each other's company, building snowmen bearing their names, playing chess, and crafting makeshift drums from pots. On Valentine's Day, Levi finds Dresa weeping over a family photograph. When she fails to appear for patrol, he inquires about her absence, and she confesses that she has been struggling emotionally, wishing he could be with her. Determined to bridge the gap, Levi constructs a makeshift contraption using the supplies at his disposal. He fires a projectile across the gorge, lodging it into a tree. Although it sets a small fire, Dresa rushes to extinguish the flames, discovering a rope attached to the device. She secures it tightly, and upon returning to the tower, she finds Levi gesturing for a dinner invitation. He slides across the rope, struggling midway but ultimately reaching her side, presenting her with a bouquet of flowers. She remarks that he reeks due to all the exertion he has just undergone, prompting Levi to agree to take a shower. While he is washing, Dresa swipes his uniform and replaces it with a set of fine clothes left behind by a previous occupant. Over dinner, they reflect on their experiences as mercenaries and the psychological toll their line of work takes on them. Later, they share a dance, which ultimately leads to an intimate encounter. At dawn, Levi begins his descent along a rope to return to his tower. Just then, the hollow men appear on his wall, triggering a mine that detonates in a tremendous explosion, while Dresa dashes to her armory, grabbing an assortment of weapons and a parachute of her own. She leaps into the gorge, plummeting for miles before landing in a river. Upon surfacing, her parachute becomes ensnared on a rock, forcing her to cut herself free. The current immediately seizes her, sending her crashing into a rock, which causes her to lose grip of the auto-ascender. Meanwhile, Levi is unconscious, dangling precariously from a tree. Suddenly, a branch stirs. It is not a branch at all, but a creature. As it slithers towards him, Levi regains consciousness and instinctively opens fire while struggling to free himself from the entangled ropes. He tumbles to the ground, landing on what seems to be mud, only for the sticky mass to shift beneath him. It is, in fact, the gaping maw of another monstrous entity. The adhesive substance ensnares Levi, its mouth beginning to close in around him. Fortunately, Dresa hears the gunfire and rushes in, unleashing a hail of bullets to drive the creature back, rescuing Levi in the nick of time. Suddenly, a piercing screech rings out, and two hollow men emerge on grotesque, tree-like horses. The riders launch a relentless assault with their swords. One leaps from its mount, tackling Dresa, but she retaliates by driving a knife into its neck. The second rider snatches Levi's gun with a whip, prompting him to draw another firearm and swiftly gun down both the rider and its steed. After the skirmish, Dresa inspects her bag, realizing the auto-ascender was lost to the river. With the walls too steep to climb, they are effectively trapped. Dresa suggests following the river, reasoning that it must eventually lead to an exit. As Levi examines the corpse of the creature he killed, he notices an ancient military uniform, confirmation that the Hollow Men were once the lost cavalry battalions of legend. The duo presses on through the dense forest, passing countless skeletal remains before stumbling upon an abandoned town, its buildings overtaken by mutated vegetation. The fractured ground bears the scars of past earthquakes. The eerie silence is broken by distant screeches, signaling the approach of more creatures. Seeking refuge, they slip into a church, where rows of skeletal remains occupy the pews. A faint, acrid scent lingers in the air, cyanide. Levi deduces that the former inhabitants took their own lives rather than endure this cursed existence. Their grim reflections are interrupted by a noise above, where Dresa spots a massive spider leaping towards her. She instinctively knocks it aside, but before she can recover, another scuttles towards her. Within moments, hollow men burst in, forcing them to divide their attention between the spiders and the new assailants. Dresa slams one enemy's head against a table before hurling it aside, allowing the spiders to swarm over it. Levi finds himself locked in close combat with the creatures. Thinking quickly, Dresa fires a grenade at the back wall, blasting open an escape route. The pair bolts into the forest. Near the base of the wall, they discover an old door leading into a derelict facility, now overrun with creeping vines. As they venture deeper, they realize it was once a military research laboratory. The skeletal remains of its former occupants litter the area, and Dresa powers up a dormant generator. Levi discovers an old film reel and plays it on a projector. A scientist from 1946 appears on the screen, revealing that this settlement was established as part of a classified international effort. During the final years of the Second World War, they had developed biochemical warheads. However, an earthquake struck just 6 days before the recording, unleashing a chemical leak. The researchers toiled tirelessly to contain the toxin, but it had already fused with the DNA of the region's flora and fauna, mutating them beyond recognition. Branch-like growths spreading across her abdomen. Fortunately, the gorge's isolation prevented the contagion from spreading to the outside world. Levi and Dresa stumble upon a computer from the late 2000s, confirming that even after the initial disaster, people continued experimenting here. The facility belonged to Dark Lake, a covert paramilitary organization. The drone they had spotted earlier was gathering samples for Dark Lake's ongoing experiments, an effort to create super soldiers. The towers and hired guards existed solely to protect the secret. Browsing further, Levi uncovers details on the Stray Dog Protocol, a nuclear failsafe designed to eradicate the area should another leak occur. As they prepare to leave, Levi admits that the mission was worth it simply because it led him to Dresa. They step outside, deploying a smoke grenade as cover. Suddenly, a hollow man's whip coils around Dresa's ankle, yanking her away into the depths of the forest. Dragged mercilessly across the ground, she attempts to sever the whip with her knife, but a brutal collision with a tree causes her to drop it. She draws her firearm, but the rough terrain makes aiming impossible. Meanwhile, Levi tracks the rider's trail, eventually arriving at a facility housing the nuclear warhead. Inside, the hollow man has suspended Dresa from a beam, tormenting her by twisting a jagged branch lodged in her abdomen before ripping it free. Despite the agony, Dresa fights back, kicking him in the chest before unraveling the ropes to break free. She hurls a shard of metal at the creature, but it only enrages him, prompting a fierce chase. Armed with a torch, she ignites her foe, and as he howls in pain, Levi arrives to finish the job with a well-placed shot. Reunited, they press on, uncovering the original site of the toxin leak, an expanse of grotesque creatures trapped in the viscous remnants of the chemical disaster. As they navigate across a bridge, Dresa disturbs a root, triggering an onslaught of writhing bodies reaching for her. Levi hacks at the limbs, freeing her just as monstrous abominations begin stirring. Fleeing upwards, they stumble upon an old garage housing military jeeps. After making repairs, they set off, eventually reaching the broken rope. Levi secures it to the jeep while Dresa fends off attacking hollow men. They ascend, but their enemies climb in pursuit, forcing them into a brutal melee. Levi ignites a trail of fuel, engulfing their foes in flames, though the explosion cripples the jeep. Levi, his leg broken, is assisted up the remainder of the climb. Back at their towers, they plan to destroy the gorge and escape together. But when Levi's radio check-in is intercepted, their cover is blown. A final chase ensues, drones, explosions, and gunfire culminating in a nuclear detonation that wipes out their pursuers.
Straight on.
Though Dresa escapes, Levi is swept away. A month later, she resigns herself to solitude in France, only to find Levi waiting for her at a cafe. Reunited at last, they share a heartfelt embrace. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you don't miss any of our video updates.